Minecraft 1.17 has a ton of new blocks to offer, and with the update just around the corner, I thought I'd take a deeper look into some of these blocks, and more specifically, some build hacks that you could do, anyone could do, with these blocks. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. 25 build hacks with the new blocks. Starting off our list, we have a hack using the copper block. Now, copper blocks are a big addition to the game in terms of building, and they have a lot of different forms that can be used. But one other thing they have that isn't very well known is that they have the exact same texture as the purple block, with just a different color. So, these blocks could make for very nice contrasts with each other, especially in futuristic or cyberpunk themed builds. I actually made something over here just in like a few seconds. It's not that impressive, but you can get the idea. And basically what I'm trying to show here is these blocks actually go pretty well together, a lot better than you would initially think. Next on our list, we have the dripstone block and the raw iron. Now, these blocks are both new additions, but the thing is, they actually go pretty well together as a sort of blending. With this new coloration of blocks, and not only that, but multiple different blocks that share this color, you could create some pretty interesting builds using this, and probably some more detailing with like windows and such. But I think this is a super cool addition, and I am probably going to use this at some point. Going off of our textures that go well together, we have another cool transition that you can do between the new deep slate blocks and the new raw ore blocks. This one is a bit of a stretch, but what you can do is sort of gradient with the basic deep slate into the ore and then into the raw block. And you could also do this with stone and the regular form of the ore. I think this would mainly be used for larger scale builds as it doesn't really look amazing from close up. I really like the copper one from a distance though, and the other ones look pretty cool too. Number 4 on our list is a pretty basic one, actually. A lot of times you might use grass as just a sort of landscaping block, and that works pretty nicely, except for if you're in certain biomes where the grass is badly colored, especially in mesa biomes. You do not really want to use the grass there because the color is just not very good. However, a new alternative to this would be using the moss block, which doesn't change color depending on the biome you're in. So whatever biome you're in, it'll always be the same color of green. And in the past, you could use wool or concrete powder for this, but I think the moss block is a much better option because, while the concrete powder was okay, it sort of shared the texture of dirt. This one shares it even more, I would say. And also, if you use water on the concrete powder, it just becomes regular concrete, so that might be kind of hard to deal with. So overall, using the moss block would be a great way to liven up your desert or mesa grass. For number 5 on our list, we have another one using the moss blocks. Although you could do this with grass too. I just use moss blocks for this. But I basically made a custom tree using the new azalea leaves and flowering azalea leaves. That is not why I have this on here. The reason I have this on here is because using the azalea and flowering azalea plants, since they go directly in line with the top of the block, you can put them on the ground as a sort of texture, and they actually kind of look like leaf piles. And with the flowers, it kind of looks like the same thing, kind of leaf piles, and it also kind of looks like maybe just a small clump of flowers on the ground. I think both of these are going to be super useful for livening up grass textures in general. Vines are a great way to make a castle wall or any build really look a little bit more ruined, but sometimes they are a little bit too much color. So what you can do is use the new glow lichen in their place. And this kind of offers a sort of dead vine, and it looks really nice if you don't want a whole lot of color on your walls. Number 7 on our list is actually a bunch of different things, focusing on the candle. And more specifically, you can put this on certain blocks and it makes it look like it has like a really nice stand, or even like an addition to the candle. I just broke that, but there we go. So what I've arranged here is a bunch of different uses for the candle to make it sort of pop and put it on top of these stands. First, we've got one tall end rods that work with the regular candle and the white candle. Then I did upside down end rods, which kind of give it like a base or a stand. These work with really any color. You can also use stained glass with the candle on top that fits it perfectly, and even create a sort of fence design using the candles on top of the glass panes. This sort of creates, I guess, like a colored fence even. Then next up, the chain block also fits pretty well, and it works well with the darker colors of candle. And then also the fence post works well with the brown one. And there's one more of these candles that we'll get to later, but that is going to be in one of the later build hacks that we cover. Number 8 on our list relates to the Amethyst block. I did not mean for that to happen. Anyway, yes, it relates to the Amethyst block, which, well, it makes a very nice sound. It's not particularly good for building. However, there is one good use for it, and that is making chandeliers. And obviously, as you can tell, I'm not very good at this, but you can kind of see, using both the block and the clusters, it sort of creates a very chandelier-looking thing, and it helps because these clusters actually give off light, so you can actually make a functional chandelier out of this. One of the coolest blocks in the new update, in my opinion, is the Deep Slate block, simply because of how many variations there are of it. But one other thing that actually blends really well with the Deep Slate in the new update, that, to be honest, I completely forgot was a thing until now, is both the regular basalt block and the new smooth basalt block. And another cool thing with the Deep Slate is if you put it on its side, it actually has a completely different texture. If I can get it here, there we go. That is the top texture of Deep Slate. And it actually gives sort of a lighter texture, but it really blends well with the edges of the regular Deep Slate. So you can use this texture really well to make a nice blend between these. Before this update, we were very limited on what we could do to make fossils, with basically only this bone block to choose from. However, the new dripstone block actually makes for a nice sort of weathered fossil, I guess, or like an old fossil. But that isn't the main reason why this block is so good. It can also be used to make skulls sort of like this. I'm sorry for this, I am not very good at doing this, but making use of the pointed dripstone as teeth makes a really nice looking skull. In addition, you can simply use the dripstone to sort of make the fossil look a little more weathered in general. Next up, we have this pretty cool house. And while it is pretty cool, you might notice there's kind of a lot of diorite in here. Now, diorite isn't a bad block, but it has to be used not this much. Otherwise, it sort of has too much of a contrast of color because of the white and the gray. It just doesn't really work out. But what you can do is use the new calcite block and just mix it in with the diorite, and it sort of lightens up that texture just a little bit. And look at how much better that already looks now that we swapped the block out for a slightly more toned down variation of it. And if you want it to be even smoother, you can just completely get rid of the diorite entirely. I kind of prefer using a mix of both of the blocks, but this also works really nicely too. Next up, we have the lightning rod. Now this is pretty good for using to decorate roofs, as you might expect, but one cool thing about it is it changes direction based on where it's placed. So you can actually go upside down like this, and that makes a really cool looking sort of spike on top of your roof. And I mean, I don't really have a roof to work with, but here is just 5 that I did. But yeah, before these lightning rods, you'd usually use chains or iron bars for sort of spikes on a roof. But now, I feel like the lightning rod is probably going to be the best option. And then also, if you turn it upside down, it works nicely with the orange candle, which I talked about earlier. We were going to come back to the candles. Next up, we are going to the pool, swimming in the pool. And what better way to do it than with these dripstone, or not dripstone, drip leaf pool floaties. Now they're not really functional because they fall, but putting 2 of these together side by side makes for a really nice looking pool floaty that basically looks almost exactly like how a real pool floaty would look. And the problem with it is, yeah, you can't really stand on it, but I still think this is a super cool addition to your pools that I think will make them look a lot more realistic. Before we get on to the next build hack, as you could probably already tell, I'm trying to utilize most, if not all, of these different new blocks offered in this update, which is why we've got some of the more inconvenient ones, like the drip leaf right here, in our lists. I kind of wanted to see if there could be a use for every single block, and I've actually been able to come up with most of them. So without further ado, let's get on to the rest of the list. Next up, we have another wall, and this one is a brick wall. And as you can see, we've got some coarse dirt in here. This is actually a pretty commonly used thing to sort of make walls look a bit dirty, maybe in like a city type build. You might want to put some coarse dirt in here to basically make it look like it's a little more dirty and old, weathered. But a new block that is offered in this update that I think blends better with this type of wall, with the brick, is the rooted dirt, because this has actually got some sort of pinkish textures, which really matches with the granite, especially, and it also matches with the bricks pretty well. So if we go ahead and replace all of these, you can see this is actually a bit lighter, and it still makes it look like it's dirty, but I think this is a much better option if you don't want it to contrast too much. And even better, what you could do is sort of transition the rooted dirt into the coarse dirt, and that sort of, lightens up the transition into the dirtiness. Now, usually when you think of the tinted glass, you just think of the fact that it blocks out light if you use it like this. But I would actually say the tinted glass has a bit of an advantage when it comes to building too. Now, I actually also have the black stained glass here because they're pretty similar shades, but if you notice, the tinted glass is a bit easier to see through, I would say, and it also has a lot more defined edges. And I think this works perfectly in a build like this that I have constructed behind me. And right now I have black stained glass here, and it doesn't pop too much, but if I go ahead and replace it with tinted glass, you can really see the corners on that, and that makes it look a lot cleaner in my opinion, especially with this type of build. And also, this is sort of like a haunted build. It really draws out the light from the inside, which I think really helps with the aesthetic. Actually, inside this section, I've kind of got some candle light, and now it's pretty dim in here, which is pretty cool, I would say. And actually, this door is causing some of the light, so if we block that out, now this is really moody, and I think it provides for a really nice aesthetic if you use the tinted glass in builds like this. Alright, for our next one, you're going to have to do a little bit of pretending. So pretend we're in a nice, big interior that is not this size, and right here I've prepared a window, and that is just a azalea inside of a flower pot that's a few blocks back, and then I've got a wall of light blue concrete behind it. But this is a bit of a stretch, but it kind of looks like a Skyblock Island. And using this in the background, it kind of creates a cool perspective where it looks like it's kind of far away, but it's actually like 2 blocks away. Here's the same thing from the outside. You can see we just have this in a flower pot that's 2 blocks away from the window, and then we've got a wall outside. Next up, we're taking a look at the powder snow block, and more specifically, that it has the exact same texture as regular snow. Or, I actually just realized it's a little bit different, but you can barely tell. So what you can do with this is hook it up to dispensers, because dispensers can pick up the powdered snow using buckets, and you can create some cool little toggleable art using this. So as you can see, as I press the lever, we picked up all of that, and now we get a nice pattern right here. And if we turn it off, turn it back on again, it places them all back. Next on our list, we are going back to the raw iron block. I've already done this in like 2 other build hacks, but we're going back to it again because a lot of people say that it looks kind of like beans, and I would have to agree with that statement. It does kind of look like beans. So I've actually used it in this sort of like food market stall, and I'm actually using it as beans. We've got sort of like a bowl in here, or just an area where you can buy different stuff. We got melons, pumpkins, hay bales, and then in the front we've got the raw iron, and it looks like beans. Our next build hack is going to be another trippy one. If we go inside here, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But we've got this door, very cool. Let's cover this up. Now it's going to be dark, and if we go inside, you can see I've got this really nice, really cool looking setup of basically just signs, but using glow ink on them. And yeah, look at this. This is like a super futuristic, like, I don't know, computer-y looking room. Even like you're in the Matrix or something. I think it's a really cool little addition that you can have. It's not really a traditional build that you can use this for, but I think it's just a super cool thing you can like create a room out of and impress your friends or something. For our next build hack, we have statues. Statues sort of similar to these aren't a completely new thing, but I felt like with the new cobbled deet slate wall, this pretty much matches the anvil and the observer color almost identically. So I feel like you can create some super nice looking statues using this new wall. Like from before, you'd probably use stone brick walls, but let me just show you. This has a much lighter texture than the anvil, and it looks a lot worse in my opinion, whereas this one, it matches the colors almost perfectly. Next on our list, we have this random box of mossy cobblestone. Or is it? Because when we go inside, we get a nice looking lush cave. Now this is pretty obvious with the sort of lush caves biome of this update, but you can create some really cool looking cave areas, and we've even got some openings to let some light in. But using the glowberries hanging from the ceiling, they almost have a sort of vine-y look, but with this brown, this really goes well with the caves. And in addition to these new leaves and the moss and the mossy cobblestone, it creates a super cool little room that you can decorate with this stuff. It's super easy to do, and it looks amazing. We're nearing the end of our list now, and there was one block that was missing that I really wanted to find something to do with, and that is the rooted dirt. Or not, no, not the rooted dirt. We already did that. The hanging roots. And this one is a huge stretch, but if we turn around, they kind of look like tentacles, and I've sort of designed, I guess, an alien type thing. This could be used in sort of futuristic looking builds for a sort of like alien invasion scene. You could get like mini little aliens and then also like a bigger alien, and basically just put these guys all around in your city. I feel like that would be a pretty fun idea, and these hanging roots work perfectly as little tentacles for these guys. And for our last build hack, we are returning to where we started with the copper, and specifically the fully oxidized version, because it has a really nice blend with Prismarine, and it has a slightly darker and more green texture. So you can use this for a lot of different patterns, actually, for like aquatic builds and stuff like that. And I've actually come up with 3 just simple little patterns. First, we've just got a line going through the middle of copper. We've got this checkerboard pattern with the copper and prismarine bricks. And then finally, we've got a sort of tunnel using alternating between prismarine and the copper. Of course, there's a lot more designs you could do with this, but basically what I'm trying to say is use these 2 blocks together. They look really nice together. See? I just built a random thing and it looked nice still. Okay, I lied, that didn't really look that nice, but you get my point. So yeah, with that, that is 25 build hacks with the new 1.17 blocks. I hope you guys found this pretty useful, and if you did, make sure to like the video, subscribe, maybe even do both of them at the same time. And other than that, goodbye.